In the summer of 1988, Newport, Ohio still clung to the kind of hushed innocence that made kids believe the woods at the edge of town were both a playground and a proving ground. And for 11-year-old Danny Harker, Turkey Knob Woods had always been that place. A wild patch of tangled branches and shifting shadows, where the older boys dared one another to sneak cigarettes or carve initials into trees, and the younger ones went to find sticks that could be swung like swords. But the woods held a heavier silence that year, something thick that hung in the air like humidity. And Danny felt it the morning he set off alone, with the intention of finding the rumored creek that cut like a vein through the forest's belly. His sneakers crunching on the leaf mold, his hands scratched by briars he pushed aside, the sun breaking in through slats of branches overhead until he came to a place where the smell hit him, cloying and sweet like rotting fruit, like syrup turned sour in the sun, so strong it made the back of his throat spasm as bile tickled up behind his tongue. And though every instinct told him to run, his curiosity drove him forward, because 11-year-olds don't believe in finality. Not really, not until it is staring them in the face. He shoved aside a curtain of undergrowth, branches snapping back like brittle bones, and what he saw there would haunt him in ways he could never have explained to his parents, because nestled in the shallow dip of earth, half buried in leaves and crawling with flies, was a man, or what had once been a man. His flesh bloated and waxy green, eyes collapsed into pits, weeping dark fluid, lips peeled back to reveal teeth stained black, and his skin stretched and tearing at the seams like a grotesque balloon. The smell enveloped Danny, filled his lungs, soaked into his skin until it felt like he'd never be clean again. And he staggered backward, hand clapped over his mouth, fighting the urge to vomit. Yet something rooted him there, because he realized the man wasn't simply lying as if he had fallen. His belt was looped high around a branch above, snapped through in one spot, the rest coiled like a dead snake. And it dawned on Danny, with the creeping horror of a truth too adult for him to bear, that the man had hung himself here, alone in Turkey Knob Woods. His final moment, a dangling silence swallowed by the trees. Danny wanted to scream, to run, but his legs locked, and he could only stare as if hypnotized. His 11-year-old brain, unable to reconcile the sight of something so simultaneously human and inhuman, alive once, but now nothing more than meat for the flies. And then the buzzing rose, not just from the flies themselves, but from somewhere deeper inside his skull. A low electric drone that swelled as he blinked, and thought he could swear the body shifted, like the chest swelled faintly, as though catching a breath. The air cooled suddenly, unnaturally, though sweat streaked on his temple, and Danny backed away, tripping over a root and landing hard enough to knock the wind out of him. And when he blinked again, he thought no. He knew the corpse's head had turned, just slightly, not enough to be certain, but enough that his young mind screamed it had. Panic seized him, but when he tried to scramble to his feet, he heard the leaves behind him crunch, deliberate, heavy, like footsteps circling, and he froze, staring at the swollen corpse, which no longer seemed content to stay still. For the hours that followed, after he called the police from a payphone at the gas station and they told him to stay put until help came, Danny was forced to sit there, no flashlight, the light of day bleeding into dusk, until shadows stretched long and the forest became a black ocean, where every creak of a branch was a whisper and every brush of wind against his neck was a breath. The body swelled darker in the dimming light, its skin glistening as if wet, and in the thickening dark Danny swore he heard it sigh, a wet gurgle bubbling up from within as though the lungs still held the last ragged curse. His heart hammered so loud he thought it would give him away, and then he began to hear it, a voice inside his skull, a gravelly, bitter whisper that told him he had disturbed the man's rest, that he was unwelcome, that he would never leave these woods without giving something back, that if he wanted to escape the buzzing, the stink, the suffocating weight of the corpse's eyes on him, he needed to offer up blood. And Danny clutched at his ears, rocking, muttering to himself, but the voice persisted, filling him with pictures. His wrists slid open, his veins pouring out into the dirt, the woods drinking it like water. At one point he realized he had dug his fingernails into his palms, so deeply he'd drawn blood, and the moment he noticed, he swore he saw the corpse twitch, its broken belt creak, and the mouth fall open just a little wider in a grotesque grin. Time fractured, stretched into something unbearable. Minutes felt like hours, and the boy imagined that he was already dead, that perhaps the cops would arrive to find two bodies, one dangling and one small and curled in the dirt with eyes wide open. But when the red and blue lights finally flickered through the branches and adult voices called out, he nearly wept with relief, though he did not dare take his eyes off the corpse until a flashlight beam broke across it. The officers gagged at the stench, muttering to each other about decomposition, about wildlife feeding, but none of them seemed to notice that the dead man's head was now turned slightly toward Danny, as if following him. They ushered him back, loaded him into the squad car, and told him his parents would meet him at the station. But Danny sat in silence, trembling, staring back at the woods where, in the last moment before the tree swallowed the corpse from view, he could have sworn the man had raised one swollen hand, fingers twitching in a slow, deliberate wave. That night Danny dreamt of him, and the next, and 4 years after, the man came to him in sleep, not decomposed now, but whole, dressed in the same belt and shoes, his face gaunt and gray, eyes sharp and gleaming, and he would speak in a low, guttural voice, reminding Danny of how he had disturbed his resting place, whispering that the boy owed him something, that the woods had been chosen as a sanctuary, and Danny had broken that sanctuary open, and if Danny did not give his blood, he would have to give his mind. As Danny grew older, he told himself it was trauma, that nightmares after finding a corpse were normal, that the whispers in the night were just the echo of memory. But sometimes, late, walking home in the dark, he would catch the smell again, that sickly syrup rotan. His throat would tighten, his vision blur, and he would swear he heard crunching footsteps pacing him from the tree line. Sometimes, in the middle of class, his pencil would slip in his hand, and when he looked down, there would be blood pooled at the edge of his palm, where his nails had dug in, though he had no memory of pressing them so hard. And on his 11th birthday's anniversary, when the cicadas shrieked outside his window, he woke to find a length of cracked leather belt coiled neatly on his nightstand, smelling faintly of earth and rot, though his parents swore they had not placed it there. The dreams never left, and in them the dead man grew angrier, more insistent, his voice rasping with fury, urging Danny toward the trees, toward the place where silence falls deepest, toward Turkey Knob Woods, where the roots curl like fingers eager to clutch a small body and pull it under. And Danny understood, as his childhood dissolved into adolescence, that he would never escape, that the corpse had chosen him, marked him, and no matter how far he ran, every path would lead him back into the dark where the stink of sweet rot waited, and where the dead man whispered his name like a promise.